right, welcome to the MTV Studio, day 2, with Chris Anderson, Nashville, Tennessee. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So I want to hear all about it. We'll get into it, but catch us up. What's happening with you, your practice, native orthopedics, whatever you want to share about what's happening today, 2025.
Yeah, so this is our launch at AAOS 2025, and this is our first kind of coming out and revealing everybody our system. And we're just super excited to be here and show everybody what we're doing.
So, Dr. Anderson, what is happening today with Native Orthopedics?
Yeah, so we're launching our company here at AAOS 2025, and we're just really excited to show people, you know, what our company's doing and what we have to offer.
And what is that? I know a little bit. I've done the research on it, but can you dive into a little bit more about today, like what that launch looks like? What are you here to do?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, our philosophy at Native Orthopedics is to empower surgeons to restore native anatomy of patients. And so we're on a mission to give them the tools they need to perform the surgeries for their patients in a way that hasn't been done before.
So where did this start? Are you the founder of this?
I'm the founder, yeah, right now, and chief medical officer.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So where did it all start? Where did this begin?
So kind of it started after my fellowship. You know, that was around the time that we started recognizing meniscus root tears were a big problem. And they're a consequential injury because they render the meniscus functionless from a biomechanical standpoint. And we know the end result of that is a poor outcome in arthritis. And at the time, we didn't have good tools and techniques to really fix those efficiently. And the idea of this company was born out of the frustrations in my practice that I noticed. And it turned out that I wanted to create a system that was better than what we were using, which was to tie knots over a button. And if you think about it, you know, if you go back historically, that concept of tying down tissue with knots was first described by the ancient Greeks 3,000 years ago.
Wow.
And nobody has decided to really change that in a meaningful way for meniscal root. And it just didn't sit well with me. And I like the concept of taking a neglected idea and trying to improve upon that. And when I was growing up, I did a lot of fly fishing, and there are lots of parallels, it turns out, between fishing and tying knots and surgery and tying knots. And if you're fishing and you tie a knot, it's not a good knot. The fish can come undone, obviously. And if you're doing surgery and you don't tie a good knot or loosens, then the surgery can have a failure, and that's, you know, not acceptable. So I actually took a skill set that I learned from fishing, where I was starting to, instead of tying knots, I was using hollow braided fishing line and using a finger trap mechanism to combine lines together to secure them. Kind of like that little toy you play with when you're a kid. You stick your fingers in there, and then, you know, you get stuck and you start crying and you got to get your mom to get you out. That's the idea behind it. And so I used that skill set to create a device that works, and I describe it to people that aren't familiar with it. It acts like a zip tie.
Yes.
So imagine it's like a sewable surgical zip tie. And so I started ideating and prototyping around that time after my fellowship, and came up with an idea that actually worked for this. And it turned out to be more efficient and more biomechanically sound than just tying knots. And actually got some interest with some of the strategics at the time that wanted to acquire the portfolio. But it was a little bit early from a market perspective.
Sure.
It was kind of a newer thing, and I kind of decided to take it internal and develop it into a company because I thought that we could get it to people faster and in a better, more efficient way. So
it's amazing. And so is that the Dragonfly, the tie-in with the fly fishing?
Yeah, so it's all tied in. You know, the branding is all tied in together. So Dragonfly, you know, fly fishing, and you'll see with our branding materials, and even the implants and products, we actually designed some of them based on fly fishing reels and the way they cut reels out of aluminum stock. They put venting in them, and we did that with some of our guides and passers and stuff too. So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So if you take yourself back to those initial moments when you thought maybe there's a better way, and you ever imagined you'd be launching in 2025 here at Academy with the booth, great location. What's your group number, by the way?
It's 5422.
5422.
Yeah, main aisle.
Main aisle, right off the pass. I saw it the other day.
Yeah, can't miss it.
Yeah.
Right.
So did you see this happening?
No, because, you know, and I've always said it's kind of a travesty in medicine that we are not trained to do anything entrepreneurial like this. And I think that's unfortunate because we understand the problems, but we don't have the skill set to bring something like this, an idea like this, to market. So we're oftentimes forced to either partner with people, strategics, but they move slow, right? So they don't move things at the speed that you really need to get them into your surgeon's hands.
That's right.
So I never thought I'd be doing this, but I've always been interested in inventing things. So that actually goes back to my childhood, and everything kind of goes back to fishing for me. I grew up fishing, had a dad that introduced me to it very early. We traveled all over the world fishing when I was growing up, and I actually decided to try to reinvent the fish hook when I was 18. So I decided, if you look at a fish hook, it's got one big barb on one side. And the problem with that is that there's a lot of frictional resistance getting that into the tissue. And I realized that oftentimes the hook doesn't embed all the way. So I designed a concept called the mini barb fish hook, where it has two rows of barbs going around the shank that are much, much smaller.
Wow.
So there's less frictional resistance, and it'll go into the, penetrate into the tissue easier. And I took that idea to a patent attorney at the time, and he was a very gracious man. He basically put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, let me teach you a few things." And he taught me a lot about IP and how that goes down. But I realized I didn't have a strategy. I didn't have any way to commercialize it. I didn't have a business plan. I had nothing. But I've always been interested in inventing something and doing something like that. And it wasn't until that came full circle when I did my fellowship at Stanford with Gary Fanton, who was a very entrepreneurial surgeon. He'd launched a bunch of products, did a couple of companies. And that whole idea of inventing something and bringing it to life was reignited by my experience with him.
Came back.
Yeah, and then I just kind of, at that point, I was like, I don't know exactly what I want to do.
Right.
And you probably read Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour or 100% Outliers book. We talked about 10,000 hour rule, and I didn't have those 10,000 hours yet.
Right.
I needed that, and so I waited for an opportunity to come up. And then the meniscus root thing happened to be in vogue right around that time, so it's just kind of a natural segue into creating something.
It's amazing too, because like at 18 years old, you reinvent something, you see like, hey, this can be better. You're a hands-on guy. You're a surgeon.
Yep.
So during your medical journey, like medical school residency and fellowship, that probably was just dormant, right? It didn't go away. It just...
You're so busy at that time focusing on learning and memorizing facts that those things kind of take a back seat. I mean, it's always there a little bit, but you're just so focused on perfecting your skill set, your foundation of becoming a surgeon, that stuff is a little bit back. And then, like I mentioned, you really have to have that level of expertise, that 10,000 hours or more, to understand what are the trends,
right?
What's needed. You've got to be up to speed on the literature, which is difficult these days because the literature is just slowing up. You've got to keep up with that stuff and build up that institutional knowledge, which takes a decade or so. And then once you're there, then you can kind of see into the future a little bit.
That's amazing. And so how do you balance being, a surgeon in Nashville and a CMO, a founder, coming to these talks, right? If you have a family, but I mean, it's just, there's a lot.
You have to have a patient wife.
That's the key to everything.
That's number one.
Yeah.
So I've got a very supportive wife, and she, it's kind of like, how many times in your life can you catch lightning in a bottle?
Amen.
And if you've got an opportunity, at some point you can either continue the status quo in forever, or you can make a big leap and do something that's risky, which surgeons aren't used to, right? We're risk averse by nature. But I thought this is a huge opportunity, and I can make a mark. I can change orthopedics. I can help people. And our company, one of our core tenets is we're surgeon focused, but we're patient centered. So we're centered around the patient, but we've got to focus on the surgeon to help them, empower them, so they can help their patients.
Well, that's super impressive, Chris. I mean, honestly, this is really cool to hear. What is next? What's future look like? If we're sitting here again at the MTV Studio in 2026,
you're going to see some stuff.
Yeah.
So we've got big plans. We've got a whole pipeline of products. The cool thing about our Dragonfly technology is it's a little bit of a paradigm shift. What's traditionally been used in the past for knotless fixation, and it opens up all sorts of possibilities because we call it's insanely simple. It's the simplest way to secure tissue with a knotless fixation.
Nice.
So this can be scalable into other areas, and we have a series of systems and devices we'll be releasing over the next 6 months to a year.
That's exciting. So the knotless fixation, the way in which you're doing that, the IP, you're carrying that through to other parts of orthopedics.
Yeah, we want to revolutionize soft tissue repair.
Love it.
We want to change the way people do this, and we're starting with the root because the consequences of that are so dire, and the current standard of care is not good. About 40% of root repairs fail currently, and we think that's because there's what we call unrecoverable loosening, where the knots loosen up and the tissue loosens over time. It happens very quickly with just simple cycling of the knee. And with those static repairs, there's no way to retension. So we can actually put this device in the knee. We can cinch it down, cycle the knee, take away the viscoelastic creep, then retension it to get a better, more efficient repair that's hopefully going to clinically translate into better outcomes.
I really like that. That's exciting to think about the future of like just following that patient through and making sure that their recovery.
Absolutely.
Well, anything else you'd like to share here? We really appreciate you sitting with us here at the studio.
That's awesome. I appreciate you having us, and look forward to the great rest of the meeting.
Yeah, likewise. And so for people to find more about Native Orthopedics here, but then also, in a few months, if this thing re-airs and they catch it, where do you want to show them?
Yeah, so you can visit our website, nativeortho.com, and contact us through that, or LinkedIn. Please follow us on LinkedIn, and we've got some pretty cool regular posts highlighting some features of the products and kind of what we're all about.
That's awesome. So, all right, Dr. Chris Anderson, Nashville, Tennessee, CEO, founder of Native Orthopedics. It's been a pleasure to meet you, man. I'm excited for you all.
I appreciate it.
All right, brother. We'll see you.
All right, sounds good. See you.